1. I don't know what this phenomena is called, but sometimes ghosts will visit me in dreams. Most of the time it's random ones asking for help. I try to talk to them and calm them down, but I do not feel like I've helped them move on, mainly because I run out of time. But a special experience happened on Christmas of 2018 that I still haven't been able to shake off. My late brother-in-law was only 5 or 6 when he passed away in a drowning accident. I've never met him except in my dream. So when I have these dreams, it always takes place in whatever room I'm sleeping in. In this case, I was on an army base in the barracks sleeping next to my husband. I woke up in my dream in the room to somebody opening the door. The lights were on in the hallway, so I was able to make out a tiny little human walking into the room, shutting the door behind him. I sat up, watching him walk to the edge of the bed. He looked up at me and smiled. "Can I climb up?" he said. "Sure you can," I whispered. And he climbed up and sat crisscross. I introduced myself and asked his name. A little nervous at this point. I didn't recognize who he was until... Tyler. Oh shit. I looked closer at him. I will say this encounter was heartwarming but terrifying at the same time. He was so sweet but absolutely scary looking. His eyes were black, surrounded by blackish veins. His face was blue, and surprisingly his hair was dry. He was wearing these cute Batman long johns. He was scary looking, but I sensed no hostility or anger from him. "Nice to finally meet you, Tyler," I said with a smile. A little bit of tears forming in my eyes. "Is that?" he asked, pointing to his older brother. I nodded and smiled. "Yeah, that's him." He smiled big. He turned his head back at our little Christmas tree by the window. He got up to touch the ornaments. "You can play with them, sweetie. Take one if you'd like," I said softly. "Really? Thanks." He looked at the door and back at me. "I gotta go now." I was a little sad. I didn't want him to leave yet. His brother was sleeping the entire time. He didn't get to say hi. Before I was able to protest, he walked back to the door and opened it. The bright light shining through the room again, he smiled big, waved goodbye, and left. As soon as the door shut, my eyes shot open. I started crying. I was sad, but also very happy. I got up the next morning and looked at the tree. One ornament had fallen to the floor. I'm guessing he couldn't take it with him where he was going. I didn't tell my husband until a year later, this last Christmas. I told him who it was, what he looked like, what he was wearing. That's when my husband just smiled and says, "Those were his favorite PJs." I haven't seen him since. I'm crying again just thinking about all this. The entire mood in the dream was heartwarming but sad all at once. I can't help but still feel those emotions. I always question why spirits come to me in dreams and not in the real world. This time, I questioned why he didn't visit his brother, and why he didn't say hi. I appreciated the experience, but why me? 2. I work night shift at a 1920s mental hospital. Obviously, countless people have died here for various reasons. Hangings, murder-suicide beatings, accidental overdose, electroshock therapy, etc. There are 4 floors, with the 4th floor being the well-known hotspot for paranormal activity. Me being security, I have to check it out every once in a while. The 4th floor is essentially an extremely long hallway, approximately 1,800 steps, with housing units on both sides throughout. Each unit has a 5-inch thick steel door, and there's a window at the very end of the hall. They don't house patients due to the fact that the county took over a while before I started, and it's completely empty by the time 3rd shift rolls around. The 4th floor is the only floor in the entire complex that is completely off the ground, due to the complex being built into a hill. It is also where the electroshock therapy took place a long time ago. This occurrence happened last Wednesday on 3rd shift. I wanted to do a walkthrough, on the 4th floor that night around 3 a.m. for no other reason than I was feeling brave. I walk all the way down the 4th floor to the window. Eventually, as I got closer, I started seeing that the window obviously needs cleaning. When I got about 5 feet away, all of a sudden there was a handprint that would have been extremely noticeable even from 15 feet away. Looked at the handprint, turned around, said, "Nope," walked back down the hall. On my way back from the window, I peek into a side office area with my flashlight just to look. Nothing, kept going. After a couple seconds, it sounded like someone was running up behind me, so I walked even faster, because everything in my body said not to turn around. As I kept walking, I passed by a unit, and as I passed, I heard what sounded like someone punching the door. Put it up to paranoia due to the running I heard prior. That is, until I passed another unit. Another loud thud as if someone punched the door. So at this point, I start speed walking down the hall. And while I am, I hear footsteps following mine. Mind you, these units are not connected at all, and the entire floor is entirely empty. That's just one of my experiences. I have also been having dreams of a white, skinny woman in a hospital gown that has black hair with bangs in her face. I always thought that she was just a recurring person in my dreams, until I talked to one of the CNAs at work tonight in the kids unit. I never brought her up to the CNA. We were just talking about ghosts, and she said that numerous people have said that they've seen the exact woman I just explained. I explained to the CNA in detail about how she looked in my dreams, and she just went pale with her mouth hung open. Supposedly, this ghost is well known throughout the hospital by various people. People have seen her in mirrors, have been locked in bathrooms, and have seen her just walking around. But in my dreams, she always just appears or runs up to me, grabs me, and screams in my face. There was this one dream in particular where I woke up from a dream to wake up in my duplex's stairway. I walk down the stairs because that's where my bedroom is, and walk into my bedroom. Once in my bedroom, I see my bed. My fiancée is sleeping on her side of the bed, and myself sleeping. In front of my closet, which is on my side of the bed, I see that same woman standing next to my body just staring at me. I walk up to her and I get the courage to ask her just who the hell she is. She looks at me, grabs me, screams in my face, then shoves me onto my bed, which is when I officially woke up at 3:15 a.m. I have no clue who this woman is at all, but I still dream about her every now and then. Every single dream is in a different place, but she's just there. And this has been going on since I started working at my job. 3. I have been wanting to share this for some time, so here goes. There are 2 different stories. One is short and may or may not be related to the main story. Since they could be related, I will include them together. This took place over a long period of time. I, 40 male, got a cat when I was in grade 4. I am an only child and my mother is a single parent. My cat's name was Clancy. He was my best friend. Not sure if it's relevant, but to my memory Clancy was found on the front step of the shelter we got him, and they believed him to be 2 at that time. Clancy lived a long life. If he was 2 at the time we got him, then he would be 22 when he left this world. Because this took place over such a long period of time, some of the details are a little blurry. I guess the best place to start is with the ghost cat itself. See, Clancy wasn't the ghost cat. Clancy was very much alive, but he apparently had a friend. Not sure if he even knew he had a friend, but he did. So throughout my childhood and into adulthood, I would always have this strange experience when I slept. As I lay in bed and closed my eyes, I would feel the presence of a cat on my bed, slowly walking up towards my head. Every little footstep was felt, the pressure and weight exactly like a cat. Was it Clancy? No. I always slept with the door closed, clicked shut. The reason for that is I liked to sleep in and didn't want to hear my mom get up in the morning. Plus, sleeping with a cat on the bed sucks. It takes all the space, and I don't want to roll over on him. I think people might say it must have been your cat, you just didn't realize. It wasn't. Occasionally my cat would bang on the door to my room, and I would let him in or tell him to go away or spray water at him, but not that often. And we had him for 20 years, so really he didn't come into my room at night very often. Once a year or so. The ghost cat would visit every night, though. As soon as the light was off and I was in bed laying still, it would jump on my bed and walk slowly up towards my head. It was definitely spooky, but not threatening in any way. And it was silent. Having a cat, you know what it feels like to have them walk on your bed when your eyes are closed. Cats make sounds when they jump, and when they walk up to your face you can hear them purr. And they will sniff you or lick your face. The ghost cat was silent, though. No jump noise, no purring, no sniffing nose, and no licking. Just the subtle weight of its steps all the way up to your head. Many times I was wide awake and thinking to myself, am I crazy? Eventually I just figured it was all in my mind and accepted that when I sleep, I would feel what I thought was a cat on my bed. Just not my cat, because he was sleeping in the hall or somewhere else. Oh well. This experience was so gentle and non-threatening that I never talked about it. No need to, since it was just some trick I thought my mind played on me when I was going to bed. Well, Clancy got old, and one day he was very sick, and at 22, it was time to put him down, and that was a sad day for us. Time went on, and I moved out on my own. I'll take a moment to tell my other story before finishing off the ghost cat story. Living in my condo, one day I had an experience that I could not explain. Sitting on the couch with the coffee table in front of me, I was relaxing and about to smoke a joint. Normally I used a bong and now I vape, but that day I had a joint rolled and a lighter in my hand. I lit the lighter, and at that moment a piece of paper slid from one side of the table to the other, from my right to my left. I froze. Was it the lighter blowing the paper? I thought. No, that doesn't make sense, and it was on the far side of the table. The sliding door opened and wind. No, it's closed. Air conditioner blowing. No, it's off. And even if the balcony door was open and AC blowing, papers don't start sliding around on my coffee table, ever. And those things aren't even on or open anyway. I remember I checked the paper. It was slightly crumpled, and as I remember was not significant in any way. So insignificant that I didn't even keep it. I think it was in an empty envelope or something. After some thought, I came to the conclusion that was a paranormal experience, and my first one. I couldn't explain it. I told a few people, but it's not that interesting, I understand that. As I said, I thought that was my first paranormal experience, because the ghost cat wasn't a ghost to me, it was my mind playing tricks, and it hadn't happened in years. I literally didn't even think about it, until the holiday dinner at my mother's house. Mom would host a dinner at every Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving. Friends of the family would come over. About 2 years ago, we were all there, having a good time talking, celebrating when I hear my mom tell a story to a few friends. She literally tells them that a ghost cat used to walk around in her bed at night. I was shocked and jumped right into the conversation and started asking questions. She told everything and that she knew it wasn't Clancy because she could see him sitting in the hallway from her bed. Her door was open at night. I shared my experience too, and everyone thought this was really weird, and some started sharing other stories they heard, but I was especially shook up. I talked to my mom a lot about this cat. According to her, the ghost cat left when Clancy left and never came back. We don't know if it showed up at the same time he did, though. Now I have 2 different stories to share. Then one day I'm browsing Reddit and I see a shower thought about how a lot of ghosts could be cats, pushing doors open, knocking stuff off counters and stuff. Suddenly it dawns on me that my 2 experiences could be connected. Maybe Clancy or his friend moved that paper. Anyway, those are my stories. I admit the one about the paper moving is not very exciting, but it's also not explainable and could be connected to the cat. Maybe people will say I'm on drugs or something, but that's not it. I didn't even smoke that joint until sometime after the incident. I was always a non-believer, no religion, no ghosts. Nowadays I'm different. Things in this world going on, things that can't be explained. The ghost cat, though. I'm 100% convinced. I'm a believer now because I know it's true. Paranormal is real. I know this for sure, and always will. 4. My old cat Betsy died Tuesday of last week. I had lived with her for about 10 years since she was a kitten, and she spent her last 6 years living with my mom. When she died, I was at work, and my mom had let her stay in a dark, quiet space she had run to, checking in on her every so often, until she finally passed. My mom says she died sometime around 11:15 a.m. CST, but I know the exact time was 11:16. This is because I got a cell phone from her landline at that minute that wasn't from my mom. My mom called my wife at her job at about 11:30 to ask if she should tell me about Betsy's death immediately or wait until I got home. They decided to wait. My mom called me in the afternoon to give me the news, and I was sad but not surprised. Betsy had been bloated and out of energy for about a month. Her back half was very distended. A friend who has taken care of many, many cats into old age said it was most likely a tumor, and there wasn't much we could do about it. We had tried feeding her different foods and doing other things to help, but we figured a vet visit would cause her pain and stress, and probably result in euthanasia anyway. But during her call, I asked my mom if she had called me at 11:16. She hadn't. And she specifically had called my wife first to ask her if she should wait until I came home. She didn't even have her phone on her until she made the 11:30 call. When I got the call at 11:16, I saw my mom's name on the ID, and I was worried that it was probably the news I was expecting. I stepped into a hallway and answered with a hello. I heard something in the background and thought maybe my mom just had the phone away from her face at the moment. I said hello a few more times, but to be honest, I said it in an increasingly annoyed tone, as I thought my mom might have dialed me accidentally. I was also hoping if I said it enough she might notice I was there. But for the last few seconds I stopped and just listened. There was some background noise. I couldn't make it out, but I had to get back to work. I guess I was hearing a TV, and my mom just dialed me accidentally. When my mom later told me that Betsy died a little after 11 a.m., I started to wonder, asking her about specifics and telling her I had a call around then. She was positive she did not call me herself. She would not have called me, since she didn't want to give me upsetting news at work, and she had called my wife later instead. I had heard of ghost calls, usually happening at the time of a loved one's death or shortly after. If the spirit separates from the body on death, and the spirit feels emotion like it did in life, I think she would want to cry for help, even if the mechanical means to dial a phone aren't something she'd be capable of. I think that intent itself might be all a spirit needs. Ghost stories and paranormal stories across Reddit and other sources can have conflicting points, but I think we can find the essential truth in the common points that come up more than others. Techniques for astral projection and telekinesis also tend to heavily emphasize concentrating on your intent or will. So I think it's feasible for non-human spirits to do this. You just have to have the will. And I have no doubt my cat loved me and would want to reach out to me. Betsy didn't understand the idea of a phone, but she's probably heard my voice from it while sitting on my mom's lap. Many people think of cats as super independent, but she was a very human-loving cat. She had one of her litter of kittens when she was 5, and even though I prepared some dark and comfortable nesting spots so she could have places she felt safe to give birth, the morning she did, she jumped onto my bed and plopped down right on my side and started to push. And her last few years, she loved her routine of following my mom as she went about her day, and being on her shoulder or next to her lap. She slept with me when I lived with her, and she slept by my mom's neck every day until the morning she died. I talked about it again with my mom about 2 hours ago today as she visited my neighborhood for lunch. I asked again about what calls she made and when I got her call. I showed her a screenshot from yesterday of calls from her number to my cell phone. As we went over the details again, eventually all she could conclude was, "That's so weird." She raised me as an atheist all my life, and she became an atheist as a teenager. I don't follow anyone's alleged truth about how existence works beyond the material world, but I do research and work in my own paranormal, supernatural, intuitive, etc. abilities, ever since I acknowledged my stranger experiences and started trying to understand them. The single hardest person for me to ask about this would be her. It wouldn't just be hard to say, but also extremely stressful for her. But I wonder if Betsy wasn't calling me for help, but for something more. At some level of reality, I think time may happen all at once, and this is how we see potential futures. So when my mom was sitting there and looking bewildered, I told her, "Mom, my phone says the call was at 11:16. She finally says what I was hoping for. Well, it couldn't have been anything paranormal." I said nothing. I looked at my tea and sipped. Maybe Betsy was helping out 2 of her favorite humans. 5. When I was 10, it was around early September or so, I had possibly the only paranormal experience so far in my life. I grew up in a large old colonial farmhouse that was built in the 1700s. Growing up, I had an early interest in the paranormal from watching ghost hunters a bit, but at that point I had yet to really experience anything paranormal, besides one time when a radio turned on in my room upstairs when no one was upstairs. And when I went to turn it off, I had a very strong feeling of being watched. However, one evening my family had gone outside for a walk while I stayed inside. I was sitting in my kitchen, which connected to a room to the right of where I was sitting, and another room to the left. There was a hallway with a bathroom behind a wall between the other 2 rooms. I was sitting reading a book when I heard what sounded like something coming from the hallway in between the 2 rooms. I heard what I remember sounding like a female, I think younger, teenage or young adult voice, kind of sadly sigh. My cat was in the room to the right of the hallway, and she definitely heard something as well, as she was staring wide-eyed toward the direction of the hallway. This confirmed that I didn't just imagine it, and I was super spooked. I quickly ran outside and waited until my family returned from the walk. Afterwards, I tried to rationalize it as something else, like just the house settling or something, yet I remember it just sounded so real. This remains my most memorable possible paranormal experience I had while living there, until we moved when I was 14. I'm 20 now. There were several times at night I would hear footsteps, from what I remember, that sounded like a human-like pattern, and also a noise that sounded kind of like the sigh I had heard before in the older staircase in our house that was behind a shut door in my bedroom. However, I couldn't hear it because my door was shut. Also, sometimes my cat would get shut in the hallway. I was just waking up, so it may have just been a dream, a hallucination or something. There were also times waking up that I felt like I was being touched. And I remember sometimes hearing something like a chair being pushed in downstairs in the middle of the night, when nobody else would have been down there. One time I saw a small cup move a bit on its own on the kitchen counter, but it could have just been vibrations underneath or something. Anyway, those are my experiences growing up. The places I've lived in since have all been fairly new, and I have yet to experience anything I would deem possibly paranormal since I lived in that house. Thanks for listening. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Paranormal Tea, Ghost Encounters. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I must say I'm rather fond of that new title. I think it works in many levels. Not a permanent replacement. We'll still have some weeks with the regular paranormal series, but when I'm doing something that's themed, it'll be Paranormal Tea, then we'll have whatever particular type of stories are grouped together as the subheading. I'll keep the outro fairly brief as the weather is angry. It's been very, very windy today. I don't know why, but, well, Only a fool would ask the weather why it does what it does. Alright, I'm gonna go edit, and I'll be watching the big fat quiz of something or other. Not sure which one it is, but I'll be watching that while I work away to keep me company. Well, I'll have that in the wind. Okay, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.